If you're a business owner and would like more information about sponsoring Geek Therapy Radio, just email geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. That's geektherapy@iheartmedia.com or call 713-212-8422. That's 713-212-8422. It's more affordable than you might think to reach thousands of customers through the power of broadcast radio and worldwide podcast. And listeners, let me know your geek thing by emailing me, geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. I'll even give you a shout out for your submissions. And with that, meeting adjourned, let's get our geek on.
Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hemberger.
Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger, as always. No one else but me, yours truly. Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio, all my geeks and geeks to be. And those of you who don't think you're a geek, guess what? You are a geek about something. That's the whole mission statement of my show. We are all geeks about something, whether it's cars, music, painting, aeroplanes, astronomy, biology, whatever it is, we are all geeks about something. So on the show today, I have my dear friend James Sheahan. He's an actor, a musician, and we talk about everything from musicianing, actinging. We talk about Star Trek, and we talk about Data from Star Trek, and we also talk about Nintendo. So if you're listening to this on the air, don't forget that you can always grab the podcast on the iHeartRadio app or at iHeartRadio.com. Just subscribe to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast, and you're all good to go. So without further ado, let's just geek out. On the line, and by line, I mean Skype, because it is 2018, I have one of my dear, dear friends. James, do you care if I use your last name or no?
As long as you include dear every time.
I have the dear James Sheahan, and I'm throwing his name out there because he does music, and he has an album out called Booster that he and I actually recorded. It's the 1 year anniversary. I mean, it took us probably, what would you say, James, like a year to record it?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't count talks and meeting back up for the first time in a long time, I'd say based on the names of the files, we started in August and stretched it into January because there was some holiday time and normalcy.
Yeah. So we wrapped on it about a year ago, and I actually had what song? Nebula's in Us I put at the end of one of my shows previously. So listeners, you should go back. It's one of my featured artists, Nebula's in Us. I still think off of that album Booster, that's my personal favorite song. It's just like it's to me it's like the climax of the album. Like it all comes together right there. It's just so good and so ethereal and kind of really sends you out in the space. I know when you would post links to the album like on Instagram and on Facebook and social media and stuff like that, you'd have a bunch of colors playing like in a kaleidoscope kind of, and you'd be like, close your eyes and put your face right up to the screen so that the colors kind of go through your eyelids while you listen to the song. It was super awesome.
Yeah, it feels like images are flying over your eyes, and I mean, your imagination takes hold. Right.
Where can people listen to Booster?
Well, I got a website that has links to all my social media. It's Jaime or Gmail, or as long as you address me at all at this point, it'd be great. But gmail.club. It's JYME.club. That's CLUB. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's super simple.
So you can listen to the whole thing, album for free there. Or of course, it's Apple Music and Google Play and Amazon or any other buzzword is there. Right.
Just really Jaime.club, JYME.club will take you to all this stuff. So you can support them however you want. And like he said, you can listen to the album for free too. If you'd rather spend your money on a sandwich, but I implore you to do both. It's really good, and I really enjoyed working on it. And we actually have a couple other irons in the fire that we're discussing and we're going over, and kind of the other day I said we're getting a little more concrete. And who would you say, I mean, you are entirely your own thing. Like it's all from your heart. It's individual from you, obviously, but who were your influences? I know you would tell me Lights is one of your influences?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. 10 years ago, I didn't discover her, but I heard her first EP before her full-length album came out. She's a little Canadian, and I'm going to go see her in February, actually. It's going to be awesome. So the We Were Here tour. Yeah, that's been a recent, because she's younger than me. She's a few years younger than me, and it started to sink into my brain that, hey, man, where's your excuse? Where are your excuses going? You gotta get started somehow.
Right.
And if you're getting some influences, one of the artists that influenced me was, of course, Chris Carrabba of Dashboard Confessional, famously his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what my goal starting out is, to have my own thing that somebody, it's more or less, I went that route because it can't be stopped. Like, nobody's showing up late for practice.
Right.
No band member gets in a relationship or has a job like every normal person out there. So it's like, if you want to get results, have your own thing, as well as things you rely on others for. So Dashboard Confessional for that reason, big time.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever heard of Sufjan Stevens?
No, in fact.
Oh, why am I blanking out? My friend Andrew's going to kill me. He was in a group. Oh, geez. What was the group he was in? But anyways, it's going to come to me like halfway through the segment. I'm just going to blurt it out. I don't know.
People should at Geek Therapy Radio tell you how wrong you are and how you shouldn't have spaced it. They should just engage in the social media.
Right, exactly. Go to Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook and be like, dude, I listened to the last episode and Sufjan Stevens was in. See, I was hoping that would jog my memory, but it didn't. But Sufjan, he does this kind of Super Drag. That was the name of the band he was in, Super Drag.
Super Drag.
And
wow.
It's kind of this rock, kind of punk rock-ish. It's super clean. Everyone's super talented. It's like, I don't mean clean by like the lyrics are clean, but like the recordings are clean and real tight. But he kind of went his own way to do a solo project, and it's like, it's way different than why'd I just blank out on the name again? Super Drag. It's way different than Super Drag, because I keep wanting to say Super Bad or something like that. It's Super Drag. So he wanted to do his own thing, and the album he makes are so, like I used the term before, ethereal. It's not like your stuff. It's completely different. But it's very heady, and it took me a little while to appreciate kind of what he was doing. But now I fully appreciate. I think as you get older, like your taste in music kind of refines. Whereas,
absolutely.
Yeah. So like, when you're younger, like you listen to.
I think it should.
Yeah, but like when you're younger, like if you were 10 years old, I'm not sure Booster would have, amid all the Blink 182s and stuff like that, Booster would have stood out to me when I was 10. But as you grow older, it's like, oh man, you just appreciate. It's like a fine wine, and you realize that the really good music is the stuff that is not pop. I'm not saying pop is bad, but like the stuff that really, really gets to your heart and soul is
substantive. I agree. I think that like Blink 182 and bands that were just undeniable. I mean, that word would go with what else they were, was in your face. I mean, you could not ignore them. They were just these bands and influenced by other powerful bands that just. But that's like the world, and when you're young, you don't realize that that's the whole world is in your face, and it's like just coming at you, and you realize as you age and as your story progresses as well, that where's the substance? Mm-hmm. I gotta eat. I'm finally hungry. Like,
right.
This stuff is just not. It's great for this 3 minutes, but like I don't want to listen to it for the rest of my life.
Dude,
in the old folks' home.
That's a good way to put it. Like, it's kind of like growing up listening to music. You're consuming a lot of junk food, and that's not saying that Skittles are bad. That's not saying Twizzlers are bad. I mean, they taste great. They are wonderful.
It's undeniable. It affects your brain in an undeniable way.
Right. So then when you're older,
you realize what's happening to you.
Right. And then when you're older, you're like, man, I really developed a taste for lobster now, really develop a taste for steak now, really develop a taste for kind of other foods that you didn't think about when you were younger, but now you can't get enough of.
Yeah. and you realize what they do and how they make you feel. I mean, you think about it, when you become selective with your diet, and this goes for like the rest of the world too, but like when you become selective, it may be in your head, but you also feel how it makes you feel. Like after a burger or like 20 nuggets, you're like, okay, I feel like I want to just die, but like the good foods that you put in your body, I mean, it really does make you feel good. Like chugging water all day is way better than chugging soda. And, a soda holding golden child is a lyric in one of the songs that's going to be on the next album. And it speaks to that.
Right. So let's go back a little bit to how James and I met. We met, we were both doing plays. James has done more plays than I have. I did a play in college just to challenge myself. I'm a big believer in kind of doing things that puts you out of every once in a while, doing things that put you out of your comfort zone, that help you develop as a person. So I wanted to do a play. I hadn't done a play since elementary school. I had 2 lines. I was an umpire in some play. Those elementary school plays where every single kid has a part. So that was the last time I'd done a play. So when I was in college, how old was I? Early 20s or something. It's 2008. It was right before Ike. And actually Ike Rolling Through set back the start date by a couple weeks and gave me some more time to get off book. We had no power, so I just laid there all day memorizing lines. So I was in a play then, 2008. James was at a different school. He was my girlfriend. He went to a different school. So we went to competition. Where was it? It was in Houston.
San Jack.
Yeah, San Jack. We went to San Jack for a competition where everyone got together. Everyone had their own plays, and for the entire
11
weekend.
Schools there. That was a huge competition, really.
Yeah.
There's like 10, 13, I don't know.
Yeah, it was maybe a dozen or so, maybe a little less, but maybe a dozen plays from schools from around the state, I believe.
Yeah, all the way up by almost near the border, Oklahoma, all the way down.
Brownsville.
Well, I don't remember all the school. I mean, it was a lot of the east side of Texas, but it was like a dozen of them.
Right.
Which was great. It was a full 3 days of just going to seeing art. Right,
exactly. So I did the play, and James was in another school during the play, and I was telling Sarah the other day, like, I was never a theater kid, quote unquote, growing up, so I didn't feel that I had a whole lot in common with most of the other people that were there. Like, they were just, my show is Geek Therapy. We're all geeks about something. They were truly geeks about theater, not just the actors, but like the stage designers and the builders and the stagehands and stuff like that. They were all about it. But I was just doing it as a challenge to myself because I wasn't a quote unquote theater geek. So I would kind of, when we weren't performing, I would kind of sit by myself and listen to music and kind of escape into my own little world, because I just couldn't bond over everybody in regards to theater. Because even when the theater kids were not on the stage, they were still, everything is kind of acting like they are on the stage. They're doing all sorts of, like, doing scenes from different plays and acting with each other, which is really cool. Which was really cool. I just wasn't on that level, and I couldn't relate to it. But
I mean, for when you're younger, I mean, the people that gravitate, if they're not just put in theater by their parents, they're usually the more outgoing people, which is not necessarily going to give you the best talent, especially on stage, is what I'm getting at. I mean, but yeah, you.
See, yeah, so I was kind of by myself. What I'm getting at is, we went to see your show, which was a box theater. Is that what the stage is called?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, we had 3 theaters, and one was huge, and one was the proscenium is what they're called, and then we had the black box is what it's called.
Yeah.
Black box theater, and it's like the kind of like theater you could pull off in the street corners, and I mean anywhere. It's just like utilitarian. It's almost like I mean, it's a challenge.
It's so
to engage. It's not a show. I mean, it's going to be a play. It's going to be a story.
Right. So what I kind of equated to, there's 4 or 5 chairs. That was the set. Was like 4 or 5 chairs, and the spotlight would kind of shine on different people while they did their lines and told their story. And every time it came to you, I was like, this guy, like out of everybody here, like this guy is in a whole, like another league. Like just, they say acting is all in the eyes, and how, I don't know how to explain it, how you talk, like how you embodied the character. You played like some sort of hillbilly that was like accused of murder or something like that, right?
Yeah. The whole play was about people that were accused of murder and later exonerated. It was called The Exonerated, and they made a movie about it with Danny Glover and Anthony Quinn or whatever. The guy I played was Kerry Max Cook, and he had been incarcerated for like, God, it's like hard to even want to remember now. I don't know, 19 years or 20. It was insane. I mean, in Texas, up here in Huntsville, on death row the whole time.
Right.
I mean, and it was just, gosh, what do you want to know about this guy? Like. I mean, he was incarcerated at 19. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but the way you pulled off the character completely, it captured me, and it captured everyone. Like, I remember in our school, everyone's like, that guy James is just on another dimension with how far beyond we felt you were from us. And remember Lindsay, do you remember still Lindsay Edwards? Is that name?
There were four of you.
Right.
Y'all did Good Night Desdemona. Good morning. Or anyway, yeah. I was MySpace friends with her for a while. I don't think I'm Facebook friends with her, but I remember her face. Right.
She's got a different name now. She got married, but she was really good. And one of the reasons why I did the play was I had been to we had waited tables together. We worked together. So I went to a couple of her plays, and she was really, 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 really good. Like, you didn't expect to see talent like that in college. So then when we went to the competition and saw you, I was like, holy God, you were the only person that I went up to, like, out of the hundreds of people that were there that weekend. Like, you were the only person I went up to be like, shake your hand, be like, that was great, dude. I don't even know where you pulled that from, but that was like, that was just in the upper stratosphere of good.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember you all four of you. It seemed like I remember it might have been after the Houdini, which was really and technically the greatest show that was there. It was crazy. And then for you to come up to me afterward, and I didn't know at the time. I was like, I was fresh. I'm fresher in theater than you think, but it turns out I've been studying it longer. To your point of whatever you're saying, I appreciate. I don't know how to take it.
You're a natural, and that's what really stuck out. Like, the good actors are naturals. So that's how James and I met. Fast forward, we made the album together. I recorded it and helped co-produce it, and it's called Jaime. And you can listen to it, JYME.CLUB. That's Jaime.club. And the reason why I'm pimping your site right now is because we're getting to the end of the segment. So,
all right.
Yeah, so we're getting to the end of the segment. geektherapyradio.com, that's where you can find me. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram, all that good stuff. We will be right back with another segment. You got me and James coming at you. Me and Jaime for another segment. Stick around. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. My guest this week is James Sheahan. If you're just joining us, although he's very candid about it, maybe doesn't play it up as much as I do, he's probably the best, like one of the best actors, period, that I've ever seen. And I know that's touting you. You might not want to hear that, James, but like, I've watched a lot of movies, and I think your level of acting chops is right up there with the best of them. I think I could picture you on stage with Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, like, no problem. You should be in the new movie. What's The Journalist or whatever it's called? What's that coming out?
Oh yeah. Would I'd be like the Jimmy Olsen or something on the side.
Well, you should have a speaking part.
You hear about that? Yes.
No.
Boys Teen.
Say that again?
I said the squeaky voice teen. Mr. Hanks, do you need more coffee?
Yeah, see, you could totally pull it off. You could do whatever. So
I'd be convincing.
Yeah, I just want you to have a speaking role in that movie. Anyways, let's get on to the next topic du jour. And earlier this week, we were texting back and forth talking about the new album that you're working on this year. By the way, sidetrack. Do you have a name for that yet that you're thinking?
I've been hashtagging Intent Cities.
Oh, well, yeah. See, I knew that. I knew it was Intense Cities because you're all about playing on words. So, Intense Cities.
Double meanings, baby.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was what you had finally landed on, and that's not to say that you could think of something else before it's all done.
Sure, yeah, it's not on iTunes, it's not in the world yet, and you haven't heard it, so
right. So
let's just call it coming soon.
Yeah, it's working title, Intense Cities. But anyways, we were texting about that earlier this week, and how do you get on the subject? I remember you. Yeah, the last couple years of my life were a little, challenged, I guess, personally. And I was like, I just try to keep my head level. I was praying to God for guidance and wisdom, but I was also watching a lot of Star Trek and trying to model my emotional responses after Data and Spock. So I was trying to have all the heart, but keep my mind logical like Data. And that's what got us onto the discussion of, remember the episode where, there's an episode where Data had an emotion chip implanted in him, and he had been Data. For those who don't know Star Trek, all one of you, Data is a cyborg, and his main point of existence.
Android.
He's an android, right? Cyborg. What the heck am I talking about? 1,000 Trekkies just turned off the radio. He's an android, and his whole mission in life was to understand human emotion, was to understand what it feels like to have a friend, to understand love, what love felt like, because he couldn't ever be sure because he's an android. He's not programmed to feel anything. And even if that brings up the debate, like, just because he was programmed to feel something, does that mean that he actually feels something? And there was an episode or two that were based around how do we treat the situation that Data is involved in. Do we treat him just like a computer, just like a throwaway object?
A synthetic organism.
Right. Do we treat him like when he had his daughter, when he created his daughter in the lab? Should we take away his daughter because he doesn't know what love and attachment really is? And that was the argument. Does he really know what love and attachment is?
Yeah. Or do we just tell him to? So that's when after we sent that text back and forth, it's like, hold it. We're going to talk about that on the show coming up. And so I don't know. That's one thing I loved about Star Trek is all these ethical conundrums. A lot of people argue or say Star Trek, I'm talking about the Next Generation specifically right now. A lot of people argue that or think that Star Trek is boring. They can't get into it. The Next Generation. They can't get into the Next Generation because it's not enough action. It's not enough. They say the stories move slow, and each episode's like an hour long, 45, 44 minutes long, 48, 50 minutes long. So it's this long, drawn out. It's a play is what it is. It's a drawn out. It's like Shakespeare, but set in the year 23, whatever. So it takes these long times and these long arcs and these long swings around this central theme. Like the beginning, the intro to each show was to set up the problem, and usually the problem wasn't some clear-cut problem. It was, do we take Data's daughter away because it's a distraction and he can't feel love anyways? So that's why I love Star Trek. Yeah, it's more philosophical than sci-fi, I would argue.
Yeah. In the movies, and at the same time, Trekkies not all Trekkies, I'm not trying to offend all Trekkies out there, but a lot of Trekkies also argued that they hate the movies because the movies are too much TNA. It's too much just explosions and just kind of lower brow stuff. For instance, in one movie, which one is the movie where Data says shit? I gotta beep that out. But Data goes, oh shit. It was super funny.
Was it right before they hit on Generations?
That's the first thing that came to mind. But that moment was so, I was in the everyone laughed at that because no one expected to hear Data say that. And kind of goes back to the previous, what we were talking about, is that was a very human thing. Cursing is a very human thing, and it comes from a very human place. Mm-hmm. He could have said anything. He could have said, the situation is not beneficial to life forms or whatever.
Why would he say anything? I mean, doom is imminent. It's worthless to say anything. But the fact that he expressed himself at all to be heard, you start to wonder: is he sentient? Is he whatever gives people a soul? Is that present?
Right. Has Data?
Yeah.
Yeah, has Data developed that ability? Has he developed emotion? But back to the point real quick. Trekkies saying that they hate the movies because they're this or that. They're not like the show. I call it devil's advocate, but I like the movies as, almost equally as much as I like the show, the Next Generation, but for different reasons. To me, and I'll get your opinion on this too, James, but to me, the movies were allowed to be more explosions, more TNA, more sexy, whatever. They were allowed to, because you got to think about it. The actual episodes that aired on TV were about an hour long, and the movies are maybe an hour and a half tops. So you have to pack a lot of that in there, and you have to put meat in the seats. There's a lot of people who weren't into Star Trek.
Every 18 inches.
Right. There's a lot of people who weren't into Star Trek that they wanted to come see the movies. So it was okay to have explosions and more sexiness in the movies, because it was a movie. You're supposed to go there and just kind of enjoy yourself, for an hour and a half, versus the actual TV show, which was, like we said, it was all ethics, and it was all morality and what constitutes, what makes life and stuff like that. No one's going to watch a movie about that for an hour and a half. Maybe.
No, usually people go to church for that kind of thing. I mean, if you think about it.
Right, exactly. So in response to that kind of mindset, to Trekkies that don't like the movies or that denigrate the movies because they're not anything like the Next Generation, Brent Spiner, the guy who plays Data, addressed that in an interview in which he said, Star Trek is a spaghetti western. Like, if you break it all down, like, yes, there's morals and ethics, and that's in theology, and that's what the show is based around. But there was plenty. We were shooting phasers. There was cleavage. There was there was explosions. Like, it was a spaghetti western. I don't know what some Trekkies are talking about when they say that the show was only this way, and then versus the movies that were only this way.
Well, it could be functional. I mean, to me. And I'm partial to the movies. In fact, I was mid-'80s kid, so all I had were the VHS tapes of Star Trek. I mean, so that's how I was introduced. And I think of the movies as blow-offs. I mean, it's like, it's going to be like you hear promotion, and then you got enough
hype.
If you're a musician, you get the hype enough to build a house, and then you get to put on a show somewhere. Yeah. I mean, you can't go to the studio and say, look, how many episodes do you want? 24 in a season. Oh, okay. Well, they all have explosions. It's going to cost this much. Mm-hmm. Like, no, this is a profit game, right? Folks. So their function, it serves its function. Right. I mean, and not every storyline deserves its own movie. So you got to, hopefully, I mean, you could argue some of the later Star Trek movies, but these movies were very, very specifically chosen to be the movie. Right. Something we couldn't do on the show is what you hear a lot of them say on the commentaries. Right. Stuff we could never do on the show.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. Is that, one movie could have the budget of, have like 10 times the budget of the entire season of Star Trek.
Yeah.
So, but I think, I get all spacey and spazzed out about Star Trek. Some people say that another reason they couldn't get into Star Trek, The Next Generation, or even the previous just Star Trek, Because after Next Generation, CGI got way better, but Next Generation was entirely, mostly, they did have a little CGI, and you could see the CGI get better through the seasons, but it was mostly practical. They had practical props. They had, we can get off on a tangent about this, they had the tablets, you know. Picard was always walking around with his tablet and stuff, and the body scanners.
Little light brights with fixed images. Yeah.
Right, but it all worked. Yes, the props in the sets and stuff kind of look hokey. You could tell they were just kind of cheap plexiglass with little LED lights behind them, and not even LED, just incandescent bulbs behind them blinking in these patterns and sequences.
With films over them.
But that's not what the show was about. The show was always about the ethical conundrums. It was setting up something ethical, and then it'd go to commercial, and then the next 40 minutes would be addressing this ethical conundrum. And the dialogue alone, that's why I say it's like Shakespeare, but written in modern language. The dialogue just draws you in, and it really made you think, and that's why I loved The Next Generation. That's why I keep rewatching The Next Generation.
It's very cerebral.
Yeah. And that's what I love about it. That's what people like you and I love about it. That's what a lot of geeks love about it. And I think it had just enough zaniness at sometimes to drag more of an audience in. And I love the zany. Data had a cat. Why would he need a cat? What was his cat's name? Spot. Spot.
Yes, he used to Spot. It was like 3 syllables when he said it.
He was right. He's trying to discipline Spot, and he's trying to get Worf to look after his cat.
Why did with the Egyptians, with the internet meme these days, what's the thing with there's a commonality?
Right.
Cats. So maybe that's Data knew. He knows.
Right. So that was. Why would an android need a cat? So it all just begs the question, like, and let me know on Geek Therapy Radio on my social media, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. And sometimes when you're listening to the podcast, you can comment below. When you're listening to the podcast on iHeartRadio and on the iHeartRadio app, you can comment on it. If you sign into your Facebook, whatever, you can comment on the show. So let us know, was Data more human? Or was Data just always and specifically an android? Did he ever develop past an android? I'm not even... What's up?
Did he ever need the chip?
Did he ever need the chip? Exactly. That's what we said in the text. Did he ever actually need that emotion chip?
Yeah. Because I think what we're thinking is like, he has a cell, an energy cell that lasts for hundreds of years.
Right. That
could have been hundreds of years of almost guaranteed safe. My brain's not going to melt down, or my neural network is not going to melt down. So I won't risk that. I'm going to get as much. My main mission is to learn about humans and learn what it is to be a human, and that's what I'm going to do. But something inside him took the risk of throwing the whole thing away just to get that personal taste of gaining that information. He could have taken everyone's word for it. He wanted to experience it. Right.
And on that note, we're going to end this segment right there. James, can you stick around for longer?
I think so. For you, Johnny.
Okay. Well, thank you, sweetheart. We'll be right back. Sarah just kind of Sarah has a sneaking suspicion that I might be a little
We're still on for you to come over every other weekend and record this next album, right?
Yeah, man.
Sarah.
All right, that's going to do it for this segment. We'll be back with more Geek Therapy Radio. Stick around. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk. I want to stay in this vein of Star Trek a little bit, but we'll move on to other subjects. But stick around. It's going to be fun. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio, and my guest is James Sheahan. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm still your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. My guest this week is James Sheahan, actor extraordinaire, musician extraordinaire, singer extraordinaire, one of my dear friends, IRL.
That's the best part.
Yeah. I could have had I put on Facebook today, it's like, I've reached out to Elon Musk's people to hopefully have him on the show maybe. But you know what? I'm not going to feel any different talking to Elon. Like, it's more meaningful to have you on because I'm not buds with Elon. I don't know, what cereal he likes. And I don't really care what cereal he likes. Just get us to Mars. That's all I want out of him.
Oh my gosh, let's do it.
Yeah. So we were talking about Star Trek, and this is a good segue into what popped in my mind at the end of the last segment, and that is something we can't ignore, and we have to bring up. That is Seth MacFarlane's show, The Orville. James, I don't know if have you seen any episodes of The Orville?
No, but that's it is on my short list, and I'll tell you why if you get to it. I think you will, because I have an opinion on the show, and I haven't even watched it.
Well, that's, you know what, a kind of funny sidetrack. I was listening to a bit that I think NBC did. This is in regards to the State of the Union. NBC or CNN, somebody went around to a college campus. And I don't like to get too political, so I'm not going to, get into what politics are affiliated with this, what parties are affiliated with this. But they went to a college campus and they interviewed students the day before the State of the Union ever happened. So this is the day before the State of the Union, but they went around interviewing students. What did you think of the State of the Union last night? And they were just like, well, I thought Trump was very this or that. They had these opinions.
Oh my gosh.
These thought out opinions because they didn't want to say, oh, I didn't see the State of the Union. So they they were so convinced in their arguments about the State of the Union that hadn't even happened yet. But they were saying that, yeah, I watched it and here's what I thought about. Well, I thought he went on too much about immigration, or I disagreed, or I agreed with him on immigration.
And they were on TV or what?
It was I didn't see it on TV. We aired it on the radio. They aired it during the Michael Berry show, I believe.
They were on microphones.
Right.
So they cared more about the moment and having some sort of stage than they did being right.
Right.
Or being
and so one of the interesting things, the questions that the interviewer was asking, he was posing the questions like this. And remember, listeners, this was interviewing students before the State of the Union ever happened, the day before the State of the Union. But the way the interviewer was posing these questions, he was going, now Trump said that illegals should be like this or that, and just something controversial. And what do you think about that? And the student's like, well, it's typical. That's what, blah, blah, blah. And like, he never said that. Like, this thing hadn't even happened yet, but people had an opinion on it as if they had watched it because they just didn't want to secede the fact that they were quote unquote out of the loop. So rather than seem like they're out of the loop, they just made stuff up on the go, like opinions on things that hadn't even happened yet, like specific things. Anyways, back to the Orville. I'll give my opinion on it, and then you said you hadn't seen it yet. It's on your short list, but you're still entitled to your opinion, of course. I had my opinion about it before I ever watched it because I wasn't really a huge fan of Seth MacFarlane to begin with. But The Orville, in my opinion, is really good, and it pays lots of respect. It's like if The Next Generation was on TV again. Like, it's very well written, and the dilemmas and the things they talk about in the show are ethical still. It's just like The Next Generation. Of course, there's more bits. It is Seth MacFarlane, so there's more bits. He's a little bit annoying on the show. His mannerisms and his fallback little shticks that he does is a little bit... I could do without. He's not terrible. Like, he's not in every single... he's not the main character in every single episode. I like that. It's not all focused around him. It's focused around different characters. And, like in Next Generation, they would have guests on the ship with their own problems on their own planet. And that's kind of what the Orville does. And I really respect that they do it that way. And it's a very mentally fun show. It just like The Next Generation was. And I wasn't expecting it to be that. I'm not giving away any spoilers, James. I'm not giving away any spoilers to you, but you should watch it. And the fact that Seth MacFarlane isn't in the spotlight every episode is just a bonus. I don't hate him. It's just like I said, he has these shticks that he goes to that, to me, get a little bit old.
A little bit old? I mean, we've been watching Family Guy since 99.
Right.
It's a little bit old. Did we call Tom Petty a little bit old when he got to his 30th, 40th, 50th year or whatever? I mean, yeah, that's Tom Petty. Now, this is Seth MacFarlane, and if you don't like his shtick, then... I guess you don't go see his next movie, but you telling me that he's not the main character, that makes me want to watch it even more. And I don't hate Seth MacFarlane. I think, he brought just enough ass and just enough class back into entertainment at the right time, right around the late 90s, the peak of in-your-face attitude. It's like, okay, so it was appropriate. But gosh, Seth, this show, from what I've heard, and you tell me it's an ensemble cast, that is what that's what's the old stuff. It is old now. It's like we're getting close to 30 years old.
Right.
It was 30. It's 31.
Yeah,
87 was the first Next Generation.
Next Generation. I did a show recently, and one of the segments was about Star Trek, TNG turning 30. So
wow, yeah.
MacFarlane was just a gigantic Trekkie, like just a huge Star Trek nerd. So you can tell by the way in the Orville that he doesn't interject himself in the spotlight of every single episode, that he has a supreme respect for the Next Generation, and he doesn't want to do it any injustice. He has carte blanche to do whatever he wants with the show, just to make it a live action Family Guy. But he hasn't. Yeah. But he hasn't. He's made sure that the writing is very smart. I'm not going to say brilliant. At times it's brilliant. I don't think it's on the level completely that the Next Generation was as far as writing goes, but it's at least 95% there. Any Trekkie, this is my call out to Trekkies out there. Any Trekkie who is not giving the Orville a shot because A, they might not like Seth MacFarlane, or B, they think nothing's ever going to be as good as the Next Generation. I'm telling you guys right now, all my Star Trek geeks, all my Trekkies, go watch the Orville. Like DVR that ish on your box or whatever. DVR, it's really good, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I need to see that, because I've heard the amount of comedy in this Star Trek. Wow, I want to call it Star Trek. In the Orville, is like, that's what the old show was about. It wasn't the philosophy was one thing, but the characters kept it light.
Right.
And I've heard, and this is what the opinion I've had on it is it is not a comedy, but Kirk was lighthearted. I mean, Spock, you couldn't believe some of the things him and Bones would argue about. And it just, the characters carried you through such cerebral concepts of what ifs, and we think this way instead of that way. Have you ever, or putting half white, half blue people, or whatever they were, and the other one was half blue, half white, and they argued. It was like a Dr. Seuss book or something. But I mean, the comedy aspect. And you take the new Star Trek on, I don't know what it is. I don't know what network it is, but it's like the new Star Trek that they just launched with the female. CBS. I didn't know if we could say that on
that's fine.
On the radio. So we're that show takes itself too seriously.
You know what? I need to confess, I haven't seen any of it. I have not seen one episode of Discovery yet. That's my confession right now at this current stage in time. Like, I'm sure by the next episode I'll be well versed in Discovery, but I can't find it easily. Like, for some reason I can't find it to record on our AT&T box at the apartment, but I need to watch it. But everything I've heard so far is that people who've watched both are like, the Orville, it's crazy that the Orville is a better Star Trek than the current Star Trek.
Amazing.
That's crazy. On that note, we're going to wrap up this segment. We're going to have a few minutes for the last segment, because James and I can just go on and on and on and on. I texted him earlier. I was like, we'll talk for at least 30 minutes. It's been more than 30 minutes. We'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. My guest is James Sheahan. We're going to wrap it up real quick right after this. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. This is going to be, I can't even talk, kind of a quick segment. I've got James Sheahan here. I am still your host, Johnny Hamburger. My underwear still says JH on it. I am the mental curator of my baby, Geek Therapy Radio. And we are going to touch on this segment just for a few minutes, some Nintendo stuff. One being that, real quick, the Nintendo Switch has already surpassed the Wii U in hardware sales. I thought that's kind of interesting. how quickly. Well, it's been out for a year. when did Wii U come out? 2009?
I know when it came out. It came out November 12, and I got my Wii U in January 2nd, 2013. So I am one of the 13 point whatever million people in the world with a Wii U, and I've been enjoying it.
Right. And Nintendo, the Switch is at like 14 million or whatever. Switch has been selling very, very, very well. But what I want to get to was there's a new Mario Kart game coming out for mobile, for your phone, and I believe it's also going to be on the Switch, on the network, in the eShop. Don't quote me on that, but it's definitely coming to mobile. I didn't really get into Super Mario Run. Right? Is that what,
I technically beat the game. I paid my $10 for it because I'm a Nintendo zealot.
Yeah.
It was enjoyable, but there's no reason to come back to it.
It's a mobile game, and I'm not faulting it for that. I'm just saying I have it on my phone. I just haven't got real into it. I have a feeling though that multiplayer Mario Kart online would be pretty fun because you don't really need a whole ton of controls. In that case, like I hate touchscreen controls. If you had to steer with a touchscreen, that would be terrible. But all you really need on the screen is firing items and like stopping. It could all be the same button, basically. No, actually, you need a couple. Like just a couple on-screen buttons is all you need for Mario Kart Tour, and I hope that's all they have. I hope it's not like steering and braking and stuff. You should just be able to tilt your phone for all that.
They took away even the accelerate. There's like a kid mode on the new Switch Mario Kart that, it just goes on its own. All you do is steer it. Oh, you don't like it, but I'm saying they've made it so accessible that if you can't do it on a phone, they wanted to just introduce Nintendo to people who either forgot about it. No, what are they doing now? Oh, Switch. That's what they want to do. They want to be games. You make one for one system, Nintendo Switch, but now they're like, okay, nobody's buying it. 13 million at the Wii U. We got to put movies out. We got to put theme parks out. We got to just put our IP out there. And we may not get the Mario Kart we want on our mobile device, but the money that generates will make a hopefully better quality Mario Kart Switch.
Absolutely. And on that note, that's going to wrap it up for Geek Therapy Radio this week. My eternal, I was going to say condolences. That is not the right word. My eternal gratitude to James Sheahan for being on the show. James, thank you very much. Please plug your stuff right here.
I go by the artist name Jaime, however you want to say it, but you can get to it at jyme.club. That's jaime.club. You can listen to my album Booster that I put out that Johnny produced and we recorded over the course of 6 months, and we became better friends for it. Listen to it for free there. I'm all over Facebook and Instagram, and I do have a Twitter, but it's like a graveyard anymore, so get at me.
Right.
I will love to talk to you. I'll give you the album for free, too, if you contact me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, James. I am Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. You've been listening to Geek Therapy Radio. Each show that I do, I say, is the funnest one I've done yet, and this one continues the theme. This is one of the funnest shows I've done yet because I've had James Sheahan on there. Once again, thank you, James. That's going to do it for Geek Therapy Radio this week. Go hit up all the social media, Geek Therapy Radio, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. This show is not going to be on YouTube, but I've got other stuff on YouTube. Thank you very much, my listeners. Thank you for being geeks and being passionate and coming here. I try to draw a circle in the sand, not a line in the sand. This is where we all come together and enjoy our hobbies and enjoy our geek things and what we can bond over rather than focus on the things that tear us apart. So once again, thank you, my geeks, for listening. We'll be back next week with some more Geek Therapy Radio.